The Breaking Point Ambassador Marcus Webb stood before the Galactic Council and felt his patience finally snap. The chamber stretched before him like a cathedral built for giants, its ceiling lost in artificial clouds that drifted through the upper atmosphere. Around him sat representatives from 312 different species, each more ancient than humanity's entire recorded history. Marcus had been Earth's primary ambassador for 5 years. In that time, he had learned to speak 17 alien languages, memorized the cultural customs of over 100 civilizations, and negotiated agreements that saved countless lives. None of it seemed to matter now. The current speaker was High Chancellor Mordrin, a being whose species called themselves the Eternal Observers. They resembled floating jellyfish made of light, their bodies shifting through colors that represented emotions humans could barely comprehend. Mordrin had been alive for 3,000 years and never let anyone forget it. The Chancellor's voice echoed through translation devices embedded in every seat. His words came out flat and dismissive, the translator unable to capture his contempt. The human proposal for shared resource management in the frontier sectors is noted and rejected. Such matters require wisdom that comes only with millennia of experience. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. The proposal had been brilliant. Human economists and engineers had spent 2 years developing a system that would have increased resource efficiency by 40% while reducing conflicts over mining rights. The math was perfect. The logic was flawless, and it was being dismissed because humans had only been traveling through space for 400 years. This was not the first time. It was simply the last time Marcus was willing to accept it. 6 months ago, a human medical team had developed a cure for Cascade Syndrome, a disease that affected 17 different species. The team worked for 3 years, pouring billions of dollars and countless hours into research. When they announced the cure, the Council's official records credited the breakthrough to the Viridian Science Collective, who had reviewed the human data and submitted it under their own name. The humans received a footnote. 4 months ago, human peacekeepers stopped a war between the Krell Dominion and the Scythe Republic before it could start. They did this through careful diplomacy, and by positioning their ships as neutral buffers between hostile fleets. The conflict would have killed millions. Instead, it ended with a treaty signing. The Council's historical archives listed the peace as being brokered by the Eternal Observers, with no mention of humanity's role. 2 months ago, human engineers repaired the primary quantum gate network that connected the inner systems to the outer rim. The gates had been built by a civilization that went extinct 5 million years ago. Nobody alive understood how they truly worked, but they had started failing. Human technicians spent 6 weeks in deep space, working in shifts around the clock until they figured out the problem and fixed it. The Council sent a formal thank you note to the Crystalline Confederation, whose territory the gates passed through now. Marcus watched as his resource management proposal was rejected without even being read. High Chancellor Mordrin had not looked at the data. Neither had most of the other delegates. They had decided before the session began that whatever the humans proposed would be inadequate. Marcus took a deep breath. In his pocket, his secure communicator vibrated 3 times. That was the signal from Earth. Protocol Exodus had been approved. He had full authority to do what needed to be done. He stood up slowly. The movement caught attention because it was deliberate and formal. Around him, conversations faded as delegates turned to look at the human section. High Chancellor Mordrin, Marcus said clearly. His voice was calm, almost friendly. I want to thank you for your time and consideration. Mordrin's colors shifted to curious purple. You are welcome, Ambassador Webb. Perhaps in a few centuries your species will have gained enough wisdom to contribute meaningfully to Council decisions. Marcus smiled. It was not a warm smile. Actually, High Chancellor, we have decided to withdraw from the Galactic Council effective immediately. Humanity is done. The chamber went silent. It was the kind of silence that happens when something completely unexpected occurs and minds need a moment to process it. Then the laughter started. It began with the Viridian delegates, a rippling sound like water over stones. It spread to the Krell section where it sounded like grinding metal. Even some of the usually serious crystalline representatives made sounds that their translators rendered as amusement. Ambassador Webb, Mordrin said, his colors now a condescending shade of gold. You cannot simply withdraw from the Council. There are procedures. There are protocols that must be followed over many months. Marcus gathered his datapad and documentation. Behind him, the other 4 human delegates stood as well. They had been briefed on this possibility. They knew what was coming. "We are not following your procedures anymore," Marcus said. "We are invoking our sovereign right as an independent species to cease participation in any galactic organization. Effective immediately, all human personnel are being recalled from council facilities, embassies, and joint operations across all territories." He started walking toward the exit. His delegation followed. Around them, the laughter was dying, replaced by confused murmuring. A delegate from the Hive Collective, a species that spoke with one mind across billions of bodies, called out, "This is childish. You are throwing a tantrum because you did not get your way." Marcus stopped. He turned back one last time. "No, we are making a business decision. For 400 years, humanity has contributed to this council. We have provided military support, medical aid, engineering expertise, and diplomatic resources. We have asked only to be treated as equals. Instead, we have been patronized, ignored, and stolen from. So we are leaving. You will manage without us. Or you will not. Either way, it is no longer our concern." "You need us more than we need you," someone shouted from the back. Marcus could not see who said it. "Then you have nothing to worry about," Marcus replied. He walked through the massive doors. They closed behind him with a sound like thunder. In the hallway outside, Marcus pulled out his communicator and sent a single encrypted message to Earth. "Protocol Exodus is active. We are coming home." The response came back in seconds. "Confirmed. Recall orders transmitted to all human facilities. Welcome home, Ambassador." Marcus and his delegation walked through the corridors of the council complex. They passed dozens of aliens who stared at them with confusion or amusement. None of them seemed to understand what had just happened. None of them realized that everything was about to change. 3 hours later, Marcus sat on a human transport ship accelerating away from council space. Through the viewport, he could see the station growing smaller. Around him, his team was quiet. Some looked worried. Others looked relieved. "Sir," said Jennifer Cross, his chief of staff, "what happens now?" Marcus leaned back in his seat. "Now we go home, and we let them figure out how much they actually needed us." "They think we are bluffing," Jennifer said. "I know," Marcus replied. "They will learn otherwise soon enough." Across the galaxy, human facilities began shutting down in perfect coordination. Every human embassy closed its doors. Every human worker at alien facilities packed their belongings and left. Every human ship in joint military operations returned to human space. Every human medical team providing aid to alien worlds packed up their equipment and departed. It happened so smoothly that many aliens did not realize it was permanent. They thought humans were making a dramatic gesture. They expected humanity to return within days, maybe weeks at most, ready to apologize and resume their role. Back on Earth, in a secure command center beneath Geneva, Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen watched status reports scroll across multiple screens. Each report confirmed another successful evacuation. Each report showed human personnel safely leaving alien territory. "How many are still out there?" she asked her operations officer. "Approximately 2,000 civilians in various locations," the officer replied. "They are choosing to stay of their own free will. Mostly people married to aliens or running private businesses. We have confirmed they understand the situation and accept the risks." Admiral Chen nodded. "And our defensive preparations?" "Complete. All orbital platforms are online. The shipyards are operating at full capacity. We have enough stockpiled resources to be completely self-sufficient for at least 5 years." "Good," Chen said. She looked at the main screen, which showed a real-time map of human-controlled space. Every border was now marked with defensive satellites, automated weapons platforms, and patrol ships. Now we wait and see how long it takes them to notice what they have lost. In the Galactic Council chamber, the emergency session continued into its 3rd hour. High Chancellor Mordrin had called the meeting to discuss humanity's withdrawal. Most delegates still seemed to think it was temporary. "We should establish a committee to negotiate their return," suggested a representative from the Aquatic Confederation. "Offer them some minor concessions to save face." "They do not deserve concessions," countered a Viridian delegate. "They are acting like children. We should simply ignore them until they come back on their own." Councillor Thrain, a reptilian diplomat known for his careful thinking, raised one clawed hand. Perhaps we should consider what functions humans performed for the Council. We may need to prepare for their absence. This prompted more laughter. The humans were support staff, someone said dismissively. Useful occasionally, but hardly essential. Thrain was not convinced, but he said nothing more. Instead, he quietly began researching human activities over the past 4 centuries. What he found in the Council's own archives disturbed him greatly. As the meeting continued without resolution, the first systems began to fail. The quantum communication relay in Sector 7 went offline, then the one in Sector 12, then 3 more in rapid succession. In the communications center beneath the Council complex, technicians stared at error messages they did not understand. The relays were ancient technology, maintained by procedures that had been passed down for thousands of years. What none of them knew was that those procedures had been quietly rewritten and improved by human technicians over the past 2 centuries. The original methods no longer worked. Only the humans knew how to keep the ancient systems running properly. By the time the emergency session ended, 47 quantum relays across the galaxy had gone dark. Messages that should have taken seconds now took hours or days to arrive. The galactic communication network was collapsing, and humanity was silent. No explanation, no warning, no help. The Council had ignored humans for 400 years. Now they were about to learn what it felt like to be ignored in return. The reckoning. The crisis became undeniable on day 12 of humanity's withdrawal. Fleet Commander Zaxxris of the Krell Dominion watched his tactical display with growing alarm as another convoy vanished from sensors. That made 6 merchant vessels lost to piracy in his sector alone this week. Before humanity left, his sector had gone 2 years without a single pirate incident. Zaxxris was a seasoned military officer. His species had been warriors for 8,000 years. The Krell prided themselves on their military strength and strategic thinking. Yet somehow, in just 12 days, their trade routes had become hunting grounds for every criminal organization in the galaxy. He pulled up the security records from the past decade and began analyzing patrol patterns. What he discovered made his scales turn cold. Human ships had been quietly patrolling the space lanes for years. They had done this without fanfare or requests for payment. They simply showed up wherever pirates operated and made life difficult for criminals. Their presence had been so consistent that piracy had nearly disappeared in many regions. Now those human patrols were gone. The pirates had noticed immediately. They were bolder now, attacking in broad daylight, hitting convoys that would have been too risky before. Zaxxris tried to fill the gap with his own forces, but the Krell Navy was spread thin. They had always assumed someone else was handling routine security, that someone had been humans. On the agricultural world of Thessia Prime, Minister Valara stood in a hospital corridor and tried not to panic. Around her, sick people lay on beds that spilled out of rooms into hallways. More arrived every hour. The outbreak had started small, just a few cases of crimson flux in the southern continent. Now it was spreading exponentially across the planet. Crimson flux was deadly but curable. The medicine existed. Valara had ordered it 2 weeks ago from the usual supplier, a human pharmaceutical company called Universal Medical. They had provided medicine to Thessia Prime for decades at prices well below market value. The drugs always arrived within days. This time, her messages went unanswered. She tried calling other human medical companies. Nothing. She tried contacting human hospitals. Silence. In desperation, she searched for non-human suppliers who could produce the medicine. She found 3 companies willing to try. Their prices were 10 times higher than what Universal Medical charged, and they needed 6 weeks to manufacture the cure. Valara did not have 6 weeks. She had maybe 6 days before the outbreak became unstoppable. She stood in that hospital corridor watching people die from a completely preventable disease, and finally understood what humanity had been doing for the galaxy. They had been quietly keeping people alive, asking for nothing in return except basic respect. Now that respect had been denied, and the medicine had stopped flowing. In the Galactic Council chamber, High Chancellor Mordrin called another emergency session. This time nobody was laughing. The communication network was operating at 30% efficiency. Piracy rates had increased by 400%. Medical supplies were running critically short on 47 worlds. And the quantum gate network that connected the inner and outer systems was showing signs of the same failures that had occurred 2 months ago. "We need to acknowledge we have a problem," Counselor Thrain said. He stood before the assembled delegates with datapads full of evidence. For 4 centuries, humanity has been maintaining critical infrastructure across the galaxy. They did this quietly and efficiently. Now that they are gone, everything is falling apart. You exaggerate, a Viridian delegate protested. Yes, there are some disruptions, but we can handle them. We simply need time to adjust, Thrain's eyes narrowed. How much time? How many people need to die while we adjust? Thessia Prime has lost 50,000 people to Crimson Flux. The medicine exists, but only humans know how to manufacture it efficiently. We have the formulas in our databases, but they are incomplete. The humans never patented their improvements. They simply made the medicine and shared it freely. Then we will reverse engineer their method, someone suggested. That will take years, Thrain shot back. We do not have years. We have days before more outbreaks start on other worlds. High Chancellor Mordrin's color shifted to troubled orange. What do you propose, Counselor? I propose we send a diplomatic mission to Earth. We apologize for how we treated them and negotiate their return to the Council. The chamber erupted in argument. Many delegates refused to consider apologizing to a species they saw as inferior. Others recognized the necessity but wanted to avoid admitting fault. A third faction suggested simply forcing humanity back through economic sanctions or military pressure. The debate lasted 7 hours. Finally, a vote was called. The motion to send a diplomatic mission passed by a narrow margin. But the motion to issue an apology failed. The Council would ask humans to return, but they would not admit wrongdoing. The diplomatic ship departed 2 days later. It carried representatives from 12 different species, led by Ambassador Kelvin of the Eternal Observers. They crossed into human space expecting to be welcomed or at least acknowledged. Instead, they encountered automated defenses unlike anything they had seen before. The moment they crossed the border, every system on their ship went haywire. Weapons powered down. Navigation went offline. Life support switched to emergency backup. Through the viewport, they saw thousands of satellites and defense platforms that had not existed 3 months ago. Or perhaps they had existed but had been kept hidden. A calm human voice came over the emergency channel. Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space. State your purpose. Ambassador Kelvin activated his communication system with shaking hands. This is Ambassador Kelvin of the Galactic Council. We request permission to proceed to Earth for diplomatic discussions. There was a long pause. Then the human voice replied, Your request is denied. All diplomatic relations between humanity and the Galactic Council have been terminated. Please exit human space immediately. But we must speak with human leadership, Kelvin insisted. The galaxy is experiencing serious difficulties. We need to discuss. We are aware of your difficulties, the voice interrupted. They are not our concern. You have 10 minutes to reverse course before automated defense systems classify you as hostile. This is your only warning. The diplomatic ship turned around. They had no choice. As they crossed back into neutral space, their systems came back online. Behind them, human space remained sealed and silent. Back on Earth, Marcus Webb watched the diplomatic ship retreat on a tactical display. He stood in a command center alongside Admiral Chen and several other senior officials. They did not even try to apologize, he said quietly. No, Admiral Chen agreed. They still think they can negotiate from a position of strength. They have not learned yet. How long do we wait? Asked General Kowalski, head of Earth's planetary defense. Marcus considered the question. Until they understand what they lost. Until they truly grasp that we were not their servants. We were their partners, and they threw that partnership away. People are dying out there, Kowalski said. Preventable deaths. People have been dying for centuries, Marcus replied, his voice hard. On worlds where the Council claimed to maintain order but did nothing. In wars the Council ignored because they happened in regions they considered unimportant. From diseases the Council could have cured but chose not to because those species were not politically significant. Humanity tried to fix those problems. We spent our resources and our lives helping anyone who needed it. And the Council took credit for our work while treating us like idiots. He turned to face the others. If we return now, nothing changes. They will welcome us back as useful servants and continue treating us with contempt. The only way things change is if they feel the full consequences of their choices. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. However, we are not them. We do not ignore suffering when we can prevent it. Agreed, Marcus said. He made a decision. Send medical supplies to Thessia Prime, anonymous delivery. Enough to cure the outbreak. Include instructions for manufacturing more. But no contact. No diplomatic exchange. Just the medicine. They will know it came from us, Kowalski pointed out. Yes, Marcus agreed. Let them know. Let them understand that we can help but choose when and how. Let them understand the difference between partnership and servitude. 3 days later, a human cargo ship appeared in orbit above Thessia Prime. It dropped containers filled with crimson flux cure and vanished before defense systems could respond. The containers included detailed manufacturing instructions written in a way that any competent chemist could follow. Minister Valara stood in the cargo bay where the containers had been delivered and read the attached message. It was brief. Because people should not die from preventable diseases. Humanity. She distributed the medicine immediately. Within 48 hours, the outbreak was under control. Within a week, Thessian medical facilities were manufacturing their own supplies using the human instructions. 200,000 lives were saved. Valara sent a message to Earth. It was a simple thank you with a request to discuss formal relations. The message was never answered. But she noticed that when the Council tried to claim credit for resolving the outbreak, several major news networks published the truth. Anonymous sources provided evidence that humans had supplied the cure. The Council's attempt at deception failed publicly and spectacularly. The incident changed something in the galactic conversation. Species that had been sympathetic to humanity but afraid to speak up now found their voices. Smaller civilizations that had also been marginalized by the Council began asking uncomfortable questions. If the Council had treated humans this badly, how were they treating everyone else? A movement started on the Outer Rim territories. 40 species, all considered junior members of the Council, formed a coalition. They called themselves the Reform Alliance. Their demand was simple. Either the Galactic Council reforms to treat all members equally, or they would withdraw just as humanity had done. High Chancellor Mordrin tried to maintain control, but the Council was fracturing. Some species supported reform, others refused to change. The arguments grew heated and then hostile. Ancient alliances crumbled. New partnerships formed across old boundaries. Councillor Thrain emerged as the leader of the reform movement. He had spent weeks documenting humanity's contributions to the galaxy. The evidence was overwhelming. Human engineers had maintained infrastructure on 300 worlds. Human doctors had provided free medical care to populations the Council ignored. Human peacekeepers had stopped 17 wars before they could start. Human scientists had made breakthroughs in energy, agriculture, and medicine that benefited everyone. And in almost every case, the Council had either ignored these contributions or claimed credit for them under different names. Thrain presented this evidence to the full Council in a session that lasted 12 hours. He showed records of human proposals that were stolen and implemented by other species. He showed medical breakthroughs credited to civilizations that had done nothing but review human research. He showed peace treaties where human negotiators did all the work, but received no recognition. By the end of his presentation, the chamber sat in uncomfortable silence. Even the most dismissive delegates could not deny the facts. Humanity had been the invisible foundation holding galactic civilization together, and that foundation had walked away. The vote came 3 days later. Would the Council reform to treat all members equally, or would it maintain the old hierarchy? The result was split almost evenly. 158 species voted for reform, 154 voted against. The Galactic Council that had stood for 15,000 years ceased to exist that day. It broke into 2 separate organizations. The Old Council, led by Mordrin and the ancient civilizations who refused to change, and the New Assembly, led by Thrain and the species who demanded equality. Both sides sent missions to Earth. Both sides asked humanity to join them. But humanity's answer to both was the same. We are watching. When you prove through actions, not words, that you have truly changed, we will consider returning. Until then, we remain independent. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Chen looked at the reports coming in from across the galaxy. The situation was chaotic but not hopeless. The Old Council was struggling without human support. The New Assembly was trying to implement reforms but lacked experience. Both sides were learning painful lessons about what it meant to function without taking others for granted. How long do you think it will take? Marcus asked. He had returned to Earth but maintained his role as humanity's chief diplomat for galactic affairs. Years, probably, Chen replied. Real change takes time. They need to prove they understand what they did wrong. Marcus nodded. And if they never change? Admiral Chen smiled slightly. Then we remain independent. We have everything we need. Resources, technology, allies among the smaller species who remember how we treated them. We will be fine either way. She looked out at the stars. The difference is now they know they need us more than we need them. That is not arrogance. That is just mathematics. We were doing the work that held their civilization together. Now they have to do it themselves or admit they cannot. Marcus stood beside her, watching the same stars. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning a hard lesson. You cannot take people for granted forever. Eventually, they walk away. And when they do, you discover how much you actually depended on them. Humanity had walked away. The galaxy was reeling from that choice, and Earth was watching carefully to see what would happen next. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humans would never again accept being treated as anything less than equals. They had proven they could survive alone. Now the galaxy had to prove it deserved to have humanity as partners. The message was simple. Respect goes both ways. Or it does not exist at all.